It's significant that this is being discussed in the U.S. by the U.S. Congress. I think the Democrats are really trying to exert some level of influence and power and put the brakes on Trump's policies. But the experience that we have had is that President Trump doesn't need that level of support. It doesn't need the Congress. He feels that he can make decisions, declare war even without congressional approval. The fact that he went into this conflict with Iran in partnership with Israel tells you a lot about the level of planning, advanced planning that was behind the attack, and the fact that he chose to ignore the Congress and not alert the Congress that he is doing it. So it's significant that Democrats are trying to exert some level of influence, but at the end of the day, Trump will do what he wants to do.
You mentioned the Gulf region, and you suggested that, well, most of them will probably ask President Trump to, well, water it down in a sense, pull back a little bit. But the UAE has withdrawn its ambassador in Iran. It's closed its embassy. The Saudi Crown Prince, MBS, engaged in several private phone conversations with Trump last month, advocating for a military strike on Iran, despite publicly supporting diplomatic solutions. And this has been reported by the Washington Post. So how do you read this in the context of the extent of the regional war, that there may come a time that they actually join the U.S.?
Well, I think the opinion among policymakers in GCC is somewhat divided and a bit confused as to what the best way is to manage Iran. We know that prior to the war, relationships between GCC member states and Iran was improving. We know that Iran was trying to mend fences with its neighbors, and we know that Iran saw having GCC members in its, on its side, in its court, would undermine U.S. prospects of attack. That hasn't worked out the way Iran wanted, and now Iran sees the conflict as an existential threat. As a result, it's hitting at all GCC member states that house U.S. bases, and in the process is alienating all its neighbors. So the implication of this, the consequence of the Iran response to a U.S. attack, is that Iran is losing all its friends, burning all its diplomatic bridges with its neighbors.
Okay, quickly about China, let's get into that. Does this derail Trump's visit to China later this month? And I ask this question because one has to wonder, at what point does China even think about getting involved militarily?
No way. I don't believe China would get involved militarily in this conflict. China has a modus operandi that is engaging with the United States at the United Nations Forum, protesting U.S. behavior and U.S. violation of international law, which it has done, as has Russia. But China has a lot more at stake to really risk that. China has close economic ties with Gulf countries, with GCC, with Iran as well. And China is not going to jeopardize its economic interests by really engaging any kind of adventurous military operation against the United States.